Picture a hall you cannot leave. On one pan of a golden balance, they set a single feather. On the other, they set your heart. A jackal-headed figure kneels at the beam, black as river silt, and steadies it with one hand. He does not judge you. He only keeps the scale honest. This is Anubis, and nearly everything you think you know about him, starting with the words God of Death, is wrong. The oldest funeral in the world had a guardian at its heart. Here is who he really was, and why he outlived his own religion. Anubis is not the god of death. He is closer to a whole funeral service worn by one god. Embalmer, tomb guardian, guide of souls, and keeper of the scales. The Egyptians never called him Anubis. That name is Greek. To them, he was Inpu, and he was already ancient when the first pyramids were young. His whole meaning folds into one line: protection through the worst transition there is. Hold on to that. It's the reason he's still here. But where does a god like that begin? The oldest myth is stranger than you'd guess, and painfully human. His mother was Nephthys, goddess of the dusk. His father, in the earliest telling, was Osiris, who did not belong to her at all. Nephthys took the very shape of her sister Isis, and Osiris never knew the difference. When the child came, her fear won, and she left the infant among the marsh reeds. It was Isis, the wife who had been wronged, who went looking for the abandoned baby. She found him, and she raised him as her own. So the god who guards the dead began as a foundling, rescued, adopted, kept safe. He protects the helpless because he was once the most helpless thing alive. Now look at any image of him, and one thing never changes. Anubis is black, not brown, jet black, every single time. Real desert jackals are sandy brown, so the color was never a portrait, it was a message. Black was chem, the color of the silt the Nile laid down each year, and the color a body takes during embalming. To Egyptian eyes, black didn't mean death. It meant the dark ground coming back to life. And the animal itself hid a secret, uncovered only in 2015. DNA revealed the Egyptian jackal is no jackal at all. It's the African golden wolf, a separate species, closer to the gray wolf. The jackal god, it turns out, was a wolf god all along. The Egyptians wouldn't have minded. They cared what the animal did at the desert's edge, not what a laboratory would one day name it. Which brings us back to the scales and the most famous trial ever imagined. It's written in the Book of the Dead, spell 125. The dead are led into the Hall of Two Truths. 42 judges line its walls, one for every district of Egypt. The dead must face each judge and swear the negative confession. Not, I was good. Instead, I have not stolen. I have not killed. I have not lied. I have not caused pain. Then Anubis brings out the balance. The heart goes on one pan, because to Egyptians, the heart, not the brain, held everything you'd ever done and everything you were. On the other pan, the feather of Ma'at, goddess of truth and cosmic order. The test is brutal in its simplicity. Is your heart lighter than truth? Thoth, the ibis-headed scribe of the gods, waits to record the verdict. Anubis checks the plumb line, and no one has ever bribed the god who holds the scale.
And crouched beneath the beam waits Ammit. Crocodile jaws, a lion's mane, the bulk of a hippopotamus. They called her the devourer.
If the heart is heavy with wrongdoing, she eats it. And that isn't a trip to some hell. In Egyptian belief, it's worse. The second death. Total erasure. You simply cease to have ever existed. So the Egyptians hedged. They laid a carved stone scarab over the heart of the mummy, inscribed with a plea to the heart itself. Do not stand as a witness against me.
It was the only organ they left inside the body. Everything else was drawn out and stored away. The heart stayed because you'd need it one last time on the scale.
That whole funeral machinery was Anubis's true domain, and myth handed him the very first mummy of all. When Osiris was murdered by his brother Set, it was Anubis who wrapped the body so perfectly it never decayed. The template every embalmer would follow for 3,000 years. And in the real embalming tent, the priest doing that grisly work didn't just pray to Anubis. For as long as the ritual lasted, he became him.
We know this because one of the masks survived. A heavy ceramic helmet, 26 centuries old. The eye holes cut low in the neck, so the wearer saw out through the god's throat.
His guardianship was never abstract. In 1922, when Howard Carter's lamplight first crept into the treasure room of Tutankhamun's tomb, a black jackal lay waiting in the dark, carved of wood and gilded, eyes of obsidian and calcite, couched on a shrine and facing the door. 3,000 years on guard, still not blinking. The devotion ran far deeper than kings. At Saqqara, archaeologists broke into a catacomb dug for Anubis alone. The measured, ceremonial voice of someone walking you through the oldest funeral in the world and asking you quietly whether your own heart would balance. Inside lay the mummified bodies of nearly 8 million dogs and jackals, bred by the temple, offered by pilgrims who wanted the jackal god firmly on their side. Not a horror voiceover, and not a hard sell. The measured, ceremonial voice of someone walking you through the oldest funeral in the world and asking you quietly whether your own heart would balance. His holy city, the Greeks simply named Cynopolis, the city of dogs, where the gods' sacred animals wandered the streets as living images of him. Here's the strange part. The religion that built all of this is gone. Its temples are ruins, and Anubis is still everywhere. Strip away 3,000 years, and his meaning barely shifts. Protection of the vulnerable, loyalty to the dead, fairness when it actually costs you, and a steady hand through the worst transition. A dark figure who is entirely on your side. That combination is rare, and it's exactly why the jackal came back. You see him now in ink, a guardian across a forearm, a memorial for someone lost, or the scales themselves as a vow to judge fairly. And in silver, The Egyptians wore Anubis amulets in life for the same reason they wrapped them into their mummies. Safe passage, kept close. A small jackal with upright ears and the Nemes headdress, the same guardian at the scale of a stud earring. Not a morbid thing to wear, a protective one. The full story of the jackal god and the piece are linked below. Carry your guardian well.